There was excitement in the air on the morning of March 29, 1985. It was no ordinary Friday. This was the day members of the Bloomington Jefferson Senior High School Concert Band would embark on the adventure of a lifetime. Months of planning and preparation had gone on already as the troops prepared for a concert tour of Spain and Africa. The plane was originally scheduled to take off for New York at 11 o'clock, with a quick stop in Detroit on the way. Unfortunately, problems arose, and the flight out of Minneapolis was delayed by several hours. Little did the band know that this was just the beginning of misadventures that would riddle the first few days of their tour. With the plane finally ready and waiting, it was fond farewells from family and friends. Onto the plane for a quick flight to Detroit, then to New York, where a plane was to whisk the young travelers away to find themselves in an entirely different culture by 9 o'clock a.m. Saturday morning. Or so it was planned. Once the plane reached Detroit, the band was in for another unexpected delay. After waiting for hours on the plane, the band was instructed to unload and wait in the terminal.
That is right. We are now currently in Detroit, stranded in an airport, in an airplane, outside the airport in an airplane.
We don't know where Dr. Benson is.
No, we've got an update.
Are we really sleeping in
We
Detroit?
are staying overnight in Detroit.
For the front desk.
We're getting out.
We're getting out?
Oh, time to go.
Bye.
Do you want to know?
The band passed the time for several more hours, uncertain of just when they would be airborne again. Meanwhile, Director Earl Benson met with officials from Northwest, trying his best to get the band back on schedule. Finally, Benson called the band together for the grim news.
I've never encountered anything quite like this before as an individual, let alone with a group of 80. So you only have to understand that any delay here will be funded by
The
Northwest
band,
Airlines meals
weary and hungry after spending more than 15 hours waiting in airports, had a quick meal at the airport cafeteria, and then was bused to the campus hotel in Ann Arbor to spend the night. Early Saturday morning, before the sun had risen, the band was back at the Detroit airport for a flight to New York's LaGuardia Airport. But once at LaGuardia, more waiting was in store for the kids in blue.
I think it'll be pretty cool when we get to Spain and just to see all the different cultures and everything like that. I'm pretty much concerned about getting ripped off and not being able to change the monies correctly. Like paying $200 for leather jackets that's worth about $20.
I'm really excited about how we'll be able to relate with people from another culture and country. Although we may not be able to do this because of language barriers, we can accomplish this through our concerts and through our music, and I think we'll be really well received by the Spanish people.
After a couple of hours at LaGuardia, it was back on the buses again for a ride across town to yet another airport. This time it was New York's Kennedy International. By now, the band had just about had it with airports. Later, when the kids looked back, they remembered the anxieties they had.
Didn't know if we were going to make it. I was kind of wondering.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to show up to Spain or show up back on our doorsteps.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we wouldn't be able to have a trip and that we'd have to go home.
I thought I'd spend spring break laying on the sofa instead of the beach, watching Wheel of Fortune.
I thought I might have to go on vacation with my parents.
God forbid.
Yeah, I think I'd like to forget about the first 3 days because it was all just sitting around. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't go out of the hotel or anything.
All the while, the kids were waiting and worried. Their fearless leader, Dr. Benson, was busy pulling every string he could get to get the tour off the ground. You see, by this time, the band had missed by a long shot their connecting flight that was to bring them to Spain, and there were no provisions for alternate flights.
They'll pick up your dinner there tonight. They'll pick up your lodging tonight. Tomorrow morning you'll be down for breakfast on Iberia, and you'll also have lunch on Iberia tomorrow morning. Our flight, we leave the hotel tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. We get over here at 2, and we have a 4 o'clock flight guaranteed to Madrid direct. We'll arrive there at 6 in the morning on Monday. And so we're in the process of restructuring the whole concert schedule. And I think we're going to have some success. And one of the things we are going to schedule is at least a day and a half of sun time at the end.
With this news, hearts were lighter, and the students started to loosen up and get excited about spending a night in the Big Apple. Some thought that perhaps a concert would be in order, but most of the instruments were already in Spain. Nevertheless, a few of the students considered becoming the world's first a cappella band. Although the band arrived at the hotel in the early afternoon, luggage didn't start showing up until quite late that night. Even then, several pieces never showed up in New York. It was a drizzly Sunday afternoon when those kids lucky enough to have luggage packed it up and got ready to leave the Viscount Hotel. This time the airport was only a hop and skip away. Now it looked like it was really going to happen. Spain was almost a reality because of the tireless efforts of Dr. Benson and our new friends, Iberia Airlines. Of course, it never could have happened were it not for a very important man operating on the other side of the ocean. Tour manager John Bishop of Fiesta Tours International. That night, John had racked up many dollars of long-distance calls trying to make sure that the high schoolers from Bloomington wouldn't have to turn around and go back home again.
I think John Bishop did a really good job in keeping this tour going when it really looked like it was going to fall apart. He was saying that at the banquet last night that he had just finished 4 days in Spain going over and making sure that all our concerts and all the things that he had programmed originally were still on. And then when he got a phone call from Dr. Benson at 12 in the morning, I think he said, he found out that the tour and everything would be thrown off, so he had to go back and work everything out again and set up all the concert sites again and all the touring places that we'd be going to. I think that was really big of him to do that, because I think if it was me, I would have said to heck with it. It's too late to try to arrange everything again. And I think it took a lot of patience and a lot of hard work for him to get the tour back together again.
The flight to Madrid was 7 hours long. Now, with the time difference between here and there, that's 12 hours between takeoff and landing. The band had the experience of sharing the plane with another band. This one, a sharp-looking bunch of young men from a very distinguished military school in Washington, D.C. It didn't take too long, though, for our students to find out that looks can indeed be deceiving. Their band was, well, to be polite, let's just say that some thought it wouldn't be entirely inappropriate to jettison them somewhere over the Atlantic. Finally, the transatlantic flight was over. As the band came off the plane, the Spanish sun had not yet even started to peek up on the eastern horizon. But there was indeed a glow on the faces of the students.
Seriously cool. I'm seriously impressed.
With passport in hand, everyone passed through customs without a hitch. From there it was on to pick up the luggage. Some of the students hadn't seen their belongings since Minneapolis and were more worried about how long they would have to keep wearing the same pair of socks.
You guys, our luggage is here. It's in a room that doesn't open until 7:30, so we have to wait for it, but it's here. It's not in London, okay? So it's coming. Just hang tight.
With great rejoicing, everyone was eventually linked up with their bags. Everyone, that is, except for poor Jason Drabick. Jason had to go through the entire trip without his own clothes. One other item that somehow never showed up was one of the large timpani. Students speculated throughout the entire trip where it could have gotten to and what was being done with it.
I think Northwest used the parts of our timpani to fix the broken access panel on the airplane wing.
What happened to the timpani?
Hopefully it got sent with those Washington, D.C. guys,
Yeah,
didn't it?
give them something to do instead of smoke and drink on the plane.
I have
have no idea where it went, and I don't even know if we'll ever see it. And it's probably in some foreign African village, and they're probably having great fun with it right now.
I'm going to have to repeat what my hero, Dr. Benson, said at the banquet last night that Moy's Military Prep School? Yes. That hopefully it was sent with their stuff so that they would have something to beat on. But I guess that's a classic remark.
That's a classic remark, but I have a better
You think you know where it is?
I think I know where it is. I think that the timpani has in fact fallen into fascist hands.
It's in China.
China.
It's in China.
May have gone to London.
It had a lot more fun than we did.
With it in China?
They're eating out of rice. They're eating rice out of it.
I hear they needed a timpani.
A timpani, what's that?
From the airport, students loaded the 2 charter buses that would be taking them through Spain for the next several days and headed for the beautiful Palace Hotel. After getting settled in at the lavish hotel and taking a quick nap, the students had a chance to brush up on their Spanish and their math as they learned to convert American dollars to Spanish pesetos. From the bank, the kids had the rest of the morning to themselves to start exploring the streets of Madrid. Early in the afternoon, it was back on the buses for a guided tour of the city, complete with a quick history of Spain and the Spanish people.
So this is what we call Spanish Research Center to the right. So this is the street for the very best shopping. You know, in Spain it's like in America. I mean, you have fixed prices and you get your money worth. You know, when anything is very cheap, is low quality or outmoded, old-fashioned. When anything is medium price, medium quality. When anything is high price, it's high quality. You know, this is a very best street for the high quality, Serrano. And straight ahead, you can see one of the former gates of the walls. So we destroyed the walls a century ago, but nevertheless, we left that beautiful gate. That gate was built 120 years ago. Straight ahead, a monument to the Spanish teacher. Maestro means teacher, master.
After the tour, most of the students were ready for a long overdue rest and took it easy until it was time for their first real Spanish meal. Meal is hardly an appropriate word for this, however. What our hosts had laid out for us was nothing short of a feast.
You realize there's a little bit of
More course of ice cream, and then we go. Crazy, this is crazy, but hang in there. Keep laughing.
Beautiful.
That's very naughty.
This is beautiful. Oh, look at this.
Thank you, sir.
You still on your diet, Earl?
Later that evening, the band performed their first concert of the tour. Because of the delays back in the States, the entire itinerary had to be revamped. A crowd of thousands was disappointed when it was announced that this, the feature group, would not be able to appear in Saturday's concert at Madrid's Cultural Center. Tour director John Bishop did an incredible job of rescheduling concerts and tours for the band.
Dear Dr. Benson, we find American men without a lot of hair very sexy. If I weren't getting that way, I wouldn't be able to say that. We would like to personally be here to be with you, but this book will be left with you as a souvenir, and I ask for your forgiveness for my not being here. I'd like to thank you very much for the work that you've done on behalf of the government. We thank you for being here and for all that you do on behalf of the youth. A very cordial and warm hug, Mayor of Madrid.
Ah, sí. Tomamos una tour por las calles de la ciudad en un autobús, toda la banda. Estaba haciendo...
Y yo a las 2, en el bar.
No importa.
¿Te gusta?
Tuesday morning, the chefs at the Palace Hotel put out a breakfast with everything, including a touch of home. Then the band headed out for a tour of the former capital of Spain, the ancient city of Toledo.
Well, now we are going to the bus to the highest possible place of the city, and then we are going to do a very healthy, invigorating, and interesting walk. Toledo is not a city for buses. We are going to visit first the cathedral. I beg you your cooperation because today there are many people in Toledo. We are on vacation and it's very easy to get lost in the city. If any of you get lost in Toledo, lost forever. Well, you know, the city has been the former capital of the whole country. Has been the capital since the 2nd century BC until the 16th century. So we could say the city has been the melting pot of all civilizations coming to the peninsula from north, south, east, and west. You could spend here a couple of months. Only in the cathedral we could spend a couple of days. So we are going to see just the highlights of it.
Later Tuesday, the band set up for a concert at the ancient cathedral in the town of Chinchung. People had come from miles around on Sunday night hoping to hear the band, and because it was the week before Easter, had to make an extra special effort to make it back this night. Nonetheless, the cathedral was packed with an enthusiastic crowd wanting to hear the young people who had come from across the ocean to share their talents. The villagers were led from Town Square up the steep hill to the cathedral by Jefferson's drum section. Most had never seen or heard anything like it, or the concert that was to follow. Once everyone was settled in the majestic building, the band was introduced by John Bishop. They hardly recognized their own music in the rich acoustics of the cathedral. Everyone knew from the first note that during this concert they would have to keep their eyes glued to their expert director.
1944 por el señor Walters para el ejército de los Estados Unidos en Chicago. En esta canción sobresalen 4 jóvenes: Juan Norman, Cristina Copeland, Jaime Snyder y Pepe Beasley.
Later in the trip, band members remembered the concert and their interaction with the people of Chincheon.
Best concert was definitely the one in the cathedral. It was really lots of fun. The echo was it was incredible. He'd cut us off and it would just sound forever and ever. And the people's faces they just lit up. It's like they'd never heard music like that before, ever.
I'd have to agree. That was the best concert, I think. The acoustics in there, it's so different from any place else that we've ever been, so I really like that.
We really had to concentrate a lot because you had to watch Dr. Benson a lot because he had to give us a beat because the echoes were just sounding everywhere. You couldn't listen to each other. You really had to follow him. And it was a test of what our abilities and what we could do.
Like the one thing I remember is after the concert at Chincheon, the little kids especially, appreciated us so much. And at first they were really shy, but then, they came up and they were, we were getting our pictures taken with them and they were all so happy. And, remember Pedro?
They were so cute.
And the rest of them. And also the adults. I think the old people especially, it's like they appreciated us so much. They come up and take your hand. And, and you didn't understand a word they were saying, but it was praise.
Yeah, and they really appreciate us a lot.
And even when they didn't speak English, I don't know, I guess I didn't think communication was that much of a problem.
It wasn't. It was a lot of fun talking to them, talking in Spanish and trying to make them understand you, what you wanted to say.
You learn a lot of Spanish really quick.
After the concert, the band was treated to some local specialties. The students were getting used to not knowing just what they were eating and dubbed these unknowns as mystery meals. Wednesday morning, it was back on the buses as the group headed for Segovia. Among the wonders left here from the times of the Romans is an incredible aqueduct.
This is the aqueduct of Segovia in front of us. This is the aqueduct of Segovia in front of us. 25,000 blocks of granite still.
Another highlight of this trip was a visit to El Cazar La Granja, the castle made famous in the classic movie Camelot. Outside the mighty fortress, some of the students tried their skills at bartering with the local gypsies.
I give him 3.
Okay, guys, let's go. We'll have some other opportunities.
I wanted a grande.
Más grande, sí, más
Yeah,
grande.
yeah.
Sí, ese.
Yeah,
Grande.
From the castle, the band bussed back to have lunch in Segovia's Salave restaurant, where they stood in line to get a souvenir piece of the latest advertising medium, personalized toilet paper. Back in Madrid that afternoon, students had an opportunity to see some of the finest art in the entire world at the international famous Del Prado Museum. Artists represented here included El Greco, Goya's, and Rembrandt. The Madrid Youth Prison was the site of Wednesday night's concert. Here the inmates range from 14 to 24 years old. Some members of the band were nervous about what kind of reception they would receive, but they found out that it didn't take long to win over this unlikely audience. On the bus back to the hotel, and then later in the tour, students reflected on their experience at the prison.
I was scared. I was really scared.
It was a little scary. It took us a while to get in there. Tight security.
Well, yeah, when they open that door, we all walk in, and then there's another closed door.
They had to close it. So they couldn't have two open doors.
Decompression chamber.
What I couldn't believe was like you're standing and there's 5 feet away, there's this guard with a loaded gun.
I know.
Kind
It's
of
like,
peering
no,
in.
wait a minute. No, I'm a good kid.
When we were there, we sat there for so long, and nothing happened.
I know. It's like there's no way we could have all fit.
And you could see him. You could see him looking in the windows.
Yeah,
it's like ah! And then they started bringing in the chairs. It's like
it's like. Don't stare.
Thank you.
It's like, don't stare at me.
What do you guys think, like,
your
when the
blonde hair
first came?
I know.
They were real quiet at first. They didn't say a lot. And then when we were playing, they were always talking.
They were real rowdy and
They would just walk out and walk in whenever they wanted to.
Yeah, they didn't care.
But they were super audience. I mean, they clapped so much.
Oh yeah, they were great.
Well, they ate up Jenny Sandberg.
Yeah,
they really liked her.
They liked her a lot. Yeah, she was really good.
I think everybody was a little nervous, especially her.
Yeah.
You know.
Especially just being so close to them and not knowing what they were going to be like. And you were right next to him, man. I would have died.
Right next to him. You want a Coke?
No.
You want to come sit by me?
No.
Will you write me?
No.
Okay. And the next thing I know, I've got this white piece of paper in my hand with Juanito Roberto, that's his first name. I mean, they're not even talking about his last name yet. I mean, nice handwriting, though. Really? Oh, nice handwriting.
Well, that's good.
Heidi, you're really loved, aren't you?
Oh, love you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Sure.
Heidi, my love. What? Heidi, my love.
Then when we were leaving, they had the guard up above the doors that we went through, and you could see his shadow from the spotlight, and his gun on his hip when you're going, I'm just leaving.
Okay, and then the doors didn't open, but we were trapped inside. It's like,
could I get out now?
Yeah, can we leave now?
We're done, we're ready to
But
go
it was
home.
really nice. It was like when I left, my fear had subsided.
Changed. I mean, it wasn't like fear. It was like they're not that bad, really. They're just
really friendly.
They're just mixed up.
They're people too.
They just got problems.
Right.
Thursday morning, the band said goodbye to Madrid and the lovely Palace Hotel and took to the buses for a day-long ride to the southern tip of Spain, the beautiful area of Costa del Sol, coast of the sun. The buses finally stopped in the coastal city Marbella, where the band moved into their next home away from home, the Andalusia Plaza Hotel.
There's 2 rooms.
Oh, 2 rooms, neat, fun. But,
Where are we gonna go?
I don't know, I'm just gonna
go
put
over
my
here.
stuff right here for now.
Oh, we're all in different rooms.
Look at this, 2 rooms, neat.
Wow.
Look, it's like huge closet, you guys.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. Oh, nice view. This is pretty tight.
You can see the ocean over there. Like, did you see the carriage with the horse?
Yes.
We could ride that over there.
Oh, we could.
That would be kind of fun.
Once again, dinner time brought a fabulous fare of Spanish specialties. This time, though, the food wasn't the only thing that was spicy. Friday morning, the students set out for perhaps the most memorable leg of their overseas trip, a day in the mystical continent of Africa. The bus ride from Marbella took the group along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and past such landmarks as the Rock of Gibraltar. Before long, it was time to board the boat to cross the Mediterranean Sea and prepare to enter into another world. The students had a whole day to get a taste of a life they'd never seen before, for this was Morocco.
Good morning, please, and you are very welcome to Tangier. Tangier is a part of North Africa. My name is Said, E-C-I-D. I will be your leader in Tangier for a day. I hope you enjoy my service. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tangier has 500,000 inhabitants. Morocco has 25 million inhabitants. 61% everyone is less than 20 years old. Most of the generation is younger. 64% they work in agriculture, farming.
After so many hours on planes and buses, a few of the kids were ready for a less conventional mode of transportation.
George. Okay? Okay?
Okay.
Hold on. Hey, come on. George. Come on.
Oh my God.
The students soon found out that in this land, merchants are everywhere.
Not much money. American, Spanish? No. A good price. Cheap.
No. I'd give you the jacket almost if I could. I don't really like the jacket. I can't give it away though.
I know. We're on. Nice. Price.
We got how much? $10 and pesetas, 1,700.
Don't give me something. No. Thanks.
I gave him 100 and he didn't give me any change back. I know. He didn't.
That's what it was. It was 100 to get on the camel.
I thought it was 50 to get on the camel.
And then I got up and he goes, tip, give me 100 pesetas. I get it. I get like 35.
I've already run him before.
I didn't even ask him to take it.
Ride an elephant. That's hard. to get off those things. They're like tilting down. I'm like, what is
Students took advantage of stops along the way to snap some spectacular photos to show the folks back home.
They're so pretty.
Lunchtime came quickly, and with it, another opportunity to experience more of the culture of Morocco. After lunch, students were escorted to a shop specializing in fine carpets and leathers.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This shop belongs to the art school. The most beautiful piece what you see here, we make them an art school in Tangier. Now we go give you a little bit show about the Moroccan carpet and we make them an art school. In Morocco we have 4 types of Moroccan carpet where they are very famous on the world. First we have what we call the Berber rat. I mean, the Berber are the first inhabitants of this country. And before the women Berber, they use tattoos around his face or around his arms as a symbol of the tribe where they come from. But now those women, they use these tattoos in the carpet. And each Moroccan carpet, they carry liver in the back.
People had no problem finding things that they wanted. But even if they could afford them, some things just plain wouldn't fit into a suitcase.
We didn't come to buy it.
I know. Just look, this is cost to 180, shipping, including everything. But look what you buy. So look. You buy a piece of gold. Beautiful piece.
وايت لا تعليك انا نعطيه السايز ديالك هو غادي يجمع انا نعطيه الرايت سايز لا تعليك
48 This seemed a perfect place to get souvenirs for family and friends back in the States. Purchases were made, and then it was on through the streets of Morocco to the next shop. One nice thing about shopping here, there is always a salesman ready to help you when you want to buy something.
How much for this one?
That's one, the small one. Corey got one for $5. This one costs for you in dollars.
Yeah, and then I got
$8.
my first
1,003. Cheap. Ask how much.
All too soon, the time had come for the Jefferson Band to leave this intriguing city. Even after the students were on the boat, the persistent salesmen did their best to make that one last sale.
What you like? Nothing? Nothing? Oh, excuse me. Oh, no, too plenty. Easy. Easy. $50. Oh,
It's a lot easier to say no from a distance.
Where'd he go, man?
Along with learning a bit about the customs and traditions of this land, some of our students learned the fine art of bartering.
Blankets! No, the brown ones. How do you describe it? What?
I already got one of those.
No, where'd he go?
I got one in all white.
That's what you want?
Yeah, we need, no, we need 2 for 1,000. We look.
He's not going to give it to us. Just sit here.
2 for 1,000. Student price, yeah, we're students. We don't have any money. 2 for 1,000.
Student
I like the way you talk. Talk to him. 2 for 1,000. I know what his problem is. He doesn't want my money.
3 for 2,000.
Finally, with all transactions complete, ropes were cast off, and it was back across the sea to Spain. The memories from this day alone would be enough to last a lifetime.
I'll probably remember going to Africa and seeing all the people and how they live and how it's so much different from us. And I'll remember how I felt when I saw those people and thinking about what I have and what they don't even know that they're missing.
I went there planning on buying nothing and I came home with everything.
I enjoyed Africa, but the thing that kind of ruined it for me was all those street vendors. They were so pushy and they wanted to sell all their stuff to you, and it just kind of ruined it, walking through the streets with all these people following you.
We worry so much about clothes and you know, and about how people form opinions on us based on our clothes, or maybe our hairstyle, or anything. And I mean, the people in Africa, and even some of the people in Spain, they were worried about their next meal, and not about what it was going to be, but about if they were going to have it.
It was just an unreal experience to be there and say I've been in Africa, and to see everything like you have heard and seen on TV. To be there and experience it all was really something else. There's nothing quite like this, is to have a peddler come up to you and, you know, he'll do his best to try and sell you this thing, and that's all he cares about. And then all of a sudden you just completely break the ice. You have something that you had bought already and you offer to sell it to him. He just completely freaks out, and then all of a sudden he says, "Oh, you're being funny, you're you know, trying to have a good time here." And then you say a couple other things that are supposed to shock him, and then it almost gets to the point where he accepts you as a person, as not as a target that he's going to sell these things for. Exactly. And then you think that you actually got on the side with this person where you can actually communicate with them, and then he goes, "I give it to you for 1,000 pesos."
Late Friday night, as the kids were in their rooms back at the hotel sharing their experiences of the day, our cameraman tagged along with Dr. Benson for the ritual which ends each and every day of all of the band trips. Bed check.
It's your friendly band director.
Welcome to the Casbah. Come back to Morocco. What's old is what's new. We want you to buy it. We sell it to you. Good price, student discount. So make it Morocco and make it your home. Come back to Morocco, you bargain home. An apple for you. Make you good deal. Give you student discount. How much you pay, sweetie?
The band was originally scheduled to return home on Saturday, but to make up for time lost at the onset of the trip, John Bishop and Dr. Benson arranged for the band to stay one more day, then go home on Sunday. The morning and early afternoon were free time for the band. Some walked over to the nearby Puerto Banús Marina, an area of exclusive shops frequented by the world's jet-setters. Here can be seen some of the world's finest and most expensive yachts. This was also the site scheduled for the band's last concert on the original itinerary. Some of our kids braved the chilly spring waters of the Mediterranean Sea.
Beaches in Normandy!
Jim!
Ah!
Take my picture, buddy. Hang on, where's my camera? Ah, I feel so warm, it's unreal. Maybe I'm just numb.
It didn't take too long for the chilly souls to discover the warmth of the hotel's comfortable indoor pool.
You should get in there, it's great.
After a lovely day of rest and relaxation, it was time to start getting ready for the band's final concert of their tour. This concert was moved into the lobby of the hotel because of the weather. Still, many band members felt it was the best received performance of the entire trip.
concert went really well. The crowd really enjoyed it. I think there's must have been a lot of Americans in the crowd because they really liked the patriotic numbers.
I think the concert went real well. I think they've all gone well. We haven't had as many people as I would have liked to see with rescheduling and all that, but as far as making people happy, I think we've done real well, and I guess that's the most important thing.
There were a lot of people at this concert, and as we kept playing more American songs, everybody just started standing up, and it was just great because all the Americans in the audience were so proud to be from the USA. And the people that weren't from the USA, like people that were from Spain, stuff, really enjoyed us. They were really glad that we had come to Spain.
I'd have to say that perhaps the best concert was the one we did at the hotel, without a doubt. I mean, somehow, all those people being from America, the majority of them, you can see the true appreciation in their faces. I mean, it's one thing to come here and play for people, you know, Spanish people. I mean, they loved it. I mean, there was no doubt. But it meant so much to those people to hear like the Star Spangled Banner and the Washington Post March. You could just see it, and they were clapping along, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it was like it made them so proud to be from where they were from.
But I thought they played jolly well. I thought it would have been much better had they had 4 timpani, and that was a definite loss in the performance, having only 3 large kettle drums up there.
After the concert, the property managers took careful inventory of the band's equipment. Throughout the trip, these young men put forth an extra effort to keep track of an entire truckload of gear.
Uno trompeto, uno French horno. And that's what I was thinking of. Those cymbals used to be inside some sort of a cake.
This was to be the band's last night in Spain. Tomorrow they would head back for Minnesota. Now was the time for the final festive banquet. Several people key to the tour were given a chance to address the entire assembly. The feelings of many were summed up in an emotional presentation by band president Andy Moss.
First of all, even though the tour changed a lot from when we started, I think the theme word was wow. Sitting in Detroit, thinking what an interesting town it is, everybody's saying, wow. Getting to Spain finally, and everybody cheering, and a lot of wows came out there. Every place we went, I think that was the most word I heard. Went to the cathedral, everyone looked at it, wow. Going to just all the various places. I think just seeing Spain, you are all so lucky. There's so many people who would like to be able to do this and can't. Just remember all those wows. And then the other thing is the people. I don't know if you noticed, but if I think of a foreign country, I think of foreign people. But these people are so incredibly human. And I've noticed that in the past week, like, I think, get emotional on this. I think the best part of it, when we played that cathedral concert, there were few people there, very few people there. But the lady at the end who came up to me, didn't speak a word of English and probably never had. Went like this. And I said gracias, and it was, for me, the most meaningful part. I'm sorry, but I just want to say something because the people here are also incredibly human. Hector and his friends who worked at Iberia in New York ran trucks into poles, ruining our luggage. Getting here, all the people we associated with, the bus drivers, the tour guides, the people who bothered us in Africa. They're not just something in another part of the world anymore. They're real people. I want to make sure you all remember that. We've had a lot of problems on this tour. The demo was great. And there are people in places here no one will ever see but you. Remember that. Keep that. Keep your heart high. And don't complain that things went wrong. This tour has been incredible. And you've opened my best friend, and the things we have done will have a meaning to all these people. So as the old lady at the cathedral said, she hobbled over and she said, you did a good job. Congratulations.
The band then expressed their appreciation to two native Spaniards who had gone with them everywhere they went, the bus drivers.
You've all traveled. You've all traveled a lot. With us, you've traveled with other groups. And I don't know, we don't communicate very well. I speak very little Spanish, and they do such a beautiful job of Spanish, especially of making you feel very, very important. They're your friends. They worked hard. We're so very happy that they can be here to express themselves in any way they like. But something rather special, a medal that we cast. Some of you have seen it. None of you have it. But it's from Jefferson High School. It's the same one you have in your jackets, cast for us by Jostens for occasions like this. So to Leon and Pedro, thank you very much for an outstanding job.
Mr. Clark Rundell graduated from Jefferson back in 1980. Since that time, he has progressed in his musical career and now conducts a wind ensemble in England. He was invited to help with this tour.
There are a lot of benefits from going abroad. One of the biggest ones is that when you come back home, after being taken away from all that you have, you appreciate what you have so very much more. I doubt if there's too many people in the room who really aren't looking forward to going home tomorrow. It's good to get away. It's good to step back and look at all the nice things you have. It gives you a new appreciation of your country. The other thing that's terrific about tours like this is what you'll feel for a trip like this farther down the road. I'm not particularly old, but I do know that someplace like America is absolutely jam-packed full of 35-year-old people who have 2 cars and 2.2 children and are just wondering what it's all about. And they've been a success on their level, and they're now looking for something else. That something else is something I think you've experienced on this tour. The business of making people really happy is a very, very worthwhile business to be in. It's what Dr. Benson has chosen to do with his life, what I've chosen to do with my life, and it's a very worthwhile profession to be in, making people happy. I thank all of you very much for at least respecting me somewhat, even though I'm not terribly different from you, and except in my taste of music, which I'm sure my bus will appreciate. And my congratulations to Trudy Dahl, who won pictures at an exhibition in 3 notes. And thank you all for being great. I think you know the feeling in the hall tonight was absolutely electric. Those people were ecstatic to hear you. I thought Jenny Sanford was absolutely captivating. She was just super. And the playing from the band, and just the attitude of you all towards everyone who is so grateful for your services really reflects on you very well. Thank you all so much for having me along, and have a jolly time in your remainder at Jefferson and the rest of your lives. I'll probably never see you again. Okay, bye.
Tom Ringdahl is technical director at BEC TV. Fiesta Tours International paid his way on the tour so he could document the entire trip on videotape.
I've shot in a lot of different places with a lot of different people. And not used to being on this side. And let me tell you, I came into this group as an outsider. Most of you folks have worked together, have been together for a long time. And I really appreciate your taking me in and making me one of you. I'm so impressed with you as a group. You know, every once in a while, you'll see in the final footage, when I'm doing the concert, something you'll see a kind of bump like this. That's where somebody was coming up to me and pushing me and saying, "They're great! They're just great!" I know it. You're not telling me that. You're a great group, and I think that the way you break down a great group with great individuals, I get a chance to talk to a lot of you, and you're really special people. One last thing I'd like to say. Hi, Mom.
One of the high points of all the concerts was vocalist Jenny Sanford. she truly captivated the hearts of audiences throughout the tour.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Benson for all the help he's given me in my career. Thank you to the band for playing and accepting me so well, and making me feel like part of the group. It's been quite an experience. I've had a wonderful time, despite what happened. But it was great. I'll remember this all my life. Thank you. Thank you to Mrs. Benson for being such a sweetheart. And thank you to the bus driver. I can't express how much I thank you all. Thank you.
And captivating the trip for me was this afternoon. The principal from a large suburban high school in Chicago is in your audience. They're looking for a band director. I can go right now to a place. What's the name of the place? Buffalo Grove. Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Tomorrow. And I wouldn't trade this for $1 million. He wished he had kids like this. He was with some of you by the pool today, which I didn't know. And you never know who might be next to you. But he and a fellow from Germany that I met out here, a young boy who I didn't have a program for to give an autograph. I tried to get a program of ours off a German fellow who wouldn't let it go because he saves them and this is the most thrilling thing in his life. He doesn't want to part with it. He had 2. But this young little pudgy guy came up and wanted something of yours that he could take home. To the fellow, the principal in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, he saw you at the pool. He sat by some of you talked to him. He was impressed with you. He hadn't even heard you play yet. The reason he stopped tonight is because of who you were by a swimming pool. I want to find out what kind of an experience these people are involved in that causes them to be the way they are. And that's neat, because he's an assistant superintendent in an 8-school district in the northwestern suburbs of Illinois. He's going back into the classroom because he feels he's a little out of touch with kids. You're one of the first good things he's seen so far this year. And that's really neat. That makes it for me. It was a great concert tour. We didn't do all the things we wanted to do, but we did a lot of things that we weren't expecting to do. And the fact that you toughened up when you had to, when you said, I'll accept it, I know we're all working hard to do the very best we can, that's the best compliment I can pay you. Anybody can walk into a tour with all the dots, all the times, all the buses in order, everything functioning smoothly. Any band director can do that. John Bishop schedules 200 of these a year. They're all very smooth. In many cases, they're very, very empty. They're too smooth. You really find out what you got when the going gets tough. There's never been a tougher tour in 16 years. And I'm glad you were the people who experienced it because you did it. And you not only did it well musically, but more importantly, you did it humanly. Andy tried to say it, and I think he said it well. It's who you are that counts, and who all of we are going to be as a result of being here together.
Working side by side with Dr. Benson through all the thick and thin of this trip was tour manager John Bishop of Fiesta Tours International. Were it not for John's tireless efforts and great resources, the entire trip would have had to come to a screeching halt way back in New York.
Most people, there goes squeaking. Most people don't know so when you leave, not just Spain, but when you leave high school, and you make decisions in your life, some you'll regret, hopefully not too many. You look back on your achievements. Hopefully this is just one of several. And don't get depressed. Keep your goals set high. You've been part of something good.
And the same motivation that caused you to excel tonight should stay with you for a long, long time. I hope you acknowledge the time that Dr. Benson has spent on your behalf and several other people. And it's not macho to cry. And sometimes it's not the standard thing to tell people you appreciate them. But don't let your life be governed by what you think others may think of you, or what you may feel is right for the moment. Tell those that you love the most how much you appreciate them. And hold your heads up high and keep being who you are, because you're good people. I've enjoyed the opportunity to work with you. I'm a better person because of that. That's all I've got to say. I'm ready for dessert.
Topping off the emotion-filled evening was some truly Spanish entertainment. In his instructions for the next day, Dr. Benson left the band with these words of wisdom.
Trust to luck will be home at 11:30 tomorrow night, so get your best, cleanest pair of underwear on. It may have to last you 3 days. Good night. We'll see you in the morning.
Easter Sunday morning, the band pulled together all their belongings and piled onto the buses one last time. Before they pulled out, they got this final message from their friend, John Bishop.
I just want to thank you once again for the fine group you've been in, especially for those of you that gave me that champagne last night. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
By now, waiting at airports wasn't so bad. For now, everybody had memories to share and stories to tell.
Well, the last day in Madrid, I lost my passport while I was shopping.
You didn't lose it, it got stolen.
Oh, I got stolen, yeah, out of my purse.
We were shopping in a department store called El Corte Inglés, and Krista walked up to me, and she had this really scared look on her face, and she said, Amanda, I've been pickpocketed. Someone took my passport and all my traveler's checks. And we had no idea what to do. We were really scared. We walked around and we tried to find somebody who spoke English to give us directions, and it took a while. And by the time we found somebody, it was probably like, I don't know.
Like nobody understood English.
It was 15 or 20 minutes later, and they sent us to this police station. And we had a little bit of trouble getting in because the guy didn't understand English, and he had this this huge machine gun. So,
well, anyways, they sent us to another police station,
and we couldn't find it because everybody was giving us different directions.
Oh, it's down there. And then we'd ask someone else. It's down there. So then it was like, what was it, 25 minutes before we had to be back at the hotel. We're like probably about 20 minutes away. So I went back to the hotel, and John Bishop took me over to the American Embassy, and we got there, and there was nobody there that had authority that could issue a passport. And so the person, what was his name, John Bash, he was supposed to meet me at 10 o'clock that night, so we went back there at 10 o'clock, and well, he was a really nice guy, and he gave me,
He was there on overtime, right? He didn't have to be there. Those hours weren't his working hours, but he came as a favor to you and to John Bishop, right?
Yeah. So anyways, we went to his office building, which was all locked up and dark, and I typed up my own passport, and because we didn't have a secretary. He'd never done it before either.
And the ribbon ran out in the middle.
Yeah, and it was just kind of a big mess. We had about 2 lights. We were working in the dark.
John Bishop told her that she couldn't leave without something, without a piece of paper or something. She wasn't supposed to leave under penalty of death because she'd never be able to go to Africa with us, and she wouldn't be able to go to Malaga with us unless she had something.
We wouldn't be able to go home.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to go home.
Because everything was closing up for the holidays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I went to go home on Sunday.
Yeah, so she'd have to stay, with nobody, all by herself, and that would be terrible. So John Bishop told her that if they told her to leave and she still didn't have something that she shouldn't leave and she should cry her head off. She should bawl her head off if they didn't give her anything.
That would maybe break them down, but I didn't have to resort to that. Thank God.
That would have to be when we were in Madrid, 7 floors up, and we had a little ledge outside the window, and the neighbor walked over and climbed through the window. What?
No joke.
No joke.
Steve screamed really loud.
Very loud. I was quite startled.
Very loud. No, my most memorable experience was getting my hair cut and trying to tell the lady that was cutting my hair that I didn't want it all cut off, and she didn't understand, and she didn't understand. So I finally made a short picture. It was scary. All 4 of us were really scared for a while.
One of the most interesting things that happened to me was when I was getting out of the shower and the maid walked in on me and got kind of surprised and left in a hurry, laughing. But really, that's about it.
I think for me it was coming in Detroit and the flight was canceled. That was a disappointment. And I guess the topping on the cake was losing my luggage. I got sent to Madrid. I had a hard time. I had to learn to control my temper, and my patience was kind of short, but I grew a lot from that.
And the sunburn pain. I didn't take that.
With the food, like when I first saw it in the first hotel that we stayed in Madrid, I didn't really like it because I just had never tried it before, but the hotel here in Portabanas, I started to like the food and I ate just about all of it.
Well, I will remember very well trying to figure out exactly what I was eating. All the mystery meals, it's just like, what is in my soup?
It was rude. It was indescribable.
The food all around's been real good, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been different.
Some of the food, you didn't even know what it was. The food was interesting. It was rude. You could not even touch it. Someone said some of it was fish eggs, but it wasn't. It's so different. You can't even describe it. It was fun trying all these different kinds of foods.
Yeah, the people were really terrific.
I think probably the most important part of the trip from the standpoint of the students was the impact that they had on the people with whom they came in contact, the people who heard them play while here in Spain. So many people came up from all over the country telling us what fine young ladies and gentlemen they were, the way they conducted themselves, and the way that they related even in a non-musical way. It was really quite significant. Educationally, I think we fulfilled all our goals. Coming on board, coming to Spain to share the cultures, to share the musicianship that we've learned in our home state, our home school with our teachers, the person-to-person contact that we made, the impact that so many people here made on our young people. It was really, really significant. I think the students created a lot of goodwill for America, and at the same time, the Americans that heard us play had a renewed interest and a renewed enthusiasm for their own country, and listening to America the Beautiful, Stars and Stripes, and some of the tunes that are uniquely American. I think our kids certainly did us proud. I'm sure their parents, the community, the school district, and all those people who had anything at all to do with our coming to Spain and to North Africa can be justly proud that our kids fulfilled those goals. We're very proud of them. They did an excellent job.
Finally, the time had come to leave this land of ancient castles and infamous artwork, the land of pure blue seas and the land of mystery meals. After a stop in New York and getting checked through customs, it was on to Bloomington, Minnesota. On to home, where family and friends were proudly waiting to greet the world's travelers. Stories would be told, but they could never fully relay the emotions that were felt on this trip. For although these students may have come back with souvenirs in their bags, they also left something back in Spain. They left a part of themselves with everyone across the ocean with whom they had shared their music. They had touched lives with their talents, and in turn came home with something more valuable than gold. They came home with the hearts of the people of Spain.